Hey guys, Rollout here with LEGO Transformers Movie Megatron. This is obviously based on the Revenge of the Fallen version, which is probably my favorite Bayformers Megatron. I just think it's beefy and imposing, and if he can't be a Walther P-38, he might as well be a big gun that rolls. This is a stylized interpretation. I did change a few things. Most notably, I separated the turret assembly so that it can freely rotate instead of just the barrel articulating. I prefer this as I think it defines his shape a little better. He's still a weird-looking space tank, but he's less of an amorphous pile of scrap metal. His face is clearly visible. This is a quirk of the early movie Megatrons. He usually has some kind of armored cage around his head, but I decided to lean into the ridiculousness and just leave it out in the open. It's silly, but I actually sort of like this idea. It makes a certain level of sense to me that Megatron just doesn't care about hiding himself and would rather look at you face to face while he blasts you to pieces. Speaking of which, the head is on a ball joint, so he can face in the direction that his turret points in, which is nice. The little guns on top here can also move just a little bit. You can reposition the tread so he can conquer all kinds of terrain. You also have an array of jet boosters towards the rear, so theoretically he could do rocket jumps or even fly a little bit like he does in the movie. I also put together a little blast effect here using this interesting piece as ammunition. This just plugs right into the barrel, making it look like he's firing some kind of armor-piercing tank shell, which is a nice way to display him in this mode. For size comparison, as you can see, he looks great commanding a small army. He's a little bit larger than my usual Transformers, so he looks absolutely massive leading the Constructicons. To give you a better idea, here he is with Bumblebee, who is closer to the average size. And of course, here he is with Optimus. Now you might have seen me use this effect part in a couple of videos already. The truth is, I built this for Megatron. It goes hand in hand with his blast effect so that it looks like he's volleying shots at Prime from a distance. I've been sitting on this reveal for a while. While both of his modes are relatively solid, transforming him can be a bit fiddly, so this might require some patience getting done on camera. Bear with me. First, we're going to open up these sides here, and then work on what will be the legs. So we'll open these up. This piece of tread here will swing around, and then come back in. This piece will come down, these will fold up, creating the toe. Then we can take this armor piece, rotate it around, collapse the leg, and bring up the hip. And there you have one leg. We'll do the same over here. This comes out, this comes out and around, this comes down, these swing in. This piece comes around, collapse the leg, and bring up the hip. Now we'll work on the middle assembly here. So these little guns are going to come out and down. Then we can shift down the turret and open this up. Then we'll rotate these forward and out of the way before shifting down the shoulder assemblies. Once all of this is down here, then we can work on the hips.
So this will come down. This slope here will rotate around, and then these studs will go into those pinholes there. So straighten everything out and lock it together. Then this entire assembly here will drop into the back, split the legs, and there you have the lower body. Now we'll work on the arms. The shoulder comes around. This will collapse a little bit for solidity. Then we can take these armatures and swing them around this corner here. The little guns will bend, creating his fingers. Bend the elbow. And there you have his spindly left arm. Next, we'll bring this down and forward. This little piece here will come around, creating his spiked pauldron. The barrel will rotate. These pieces will shift around to the front and then rotate again once more, creating his lobster claw cannon. Then we can rotate this to make things look a little bit more natural. And there are his arms. Finally, we'll swing the head around, shift down the chest, and sit that into place. Situate everything to your liking, and there you have Megatron in robot mode. You may have noticed that his head design is pretty much the same as my original Revenge of the Fallen Megatron from nearly 10 years ago, which is a nice little throwback, but of course his body is entirely different. He's barrel-chested and broad-shouldered, he's got a lot of sharp edges and corners, which is very movie Megatron. His left arm is sort of a collection of spider-like appendages that I've simplified down into this. It should probably be gray to match the rest of his body, but I decided to go with black not only as a reference to the old Leader class toy, but to provide some contrast. I really do like the articulation in his fingers, which gives him a lot of expression. The right arm is bulky and impressive, and I really like how it changes shape between modes. I think that's very clever. I'm also proud of the fact that I was able to make his cannon in vehicle mode, his cannon in robot mode. I also like the little gold details. I think that's essential to movie Megatron. You can see that a couple of his jet boosters do end up on his back, albeit in a slightly different orientation than they should be, but at least they're there. Now his front treads actually become his heels instead of his toes. That's because at this scale I couldn't effectively split them apart, so I flipped the leg around to get that distinct split in his toe, and I think it looks pretty good. For articulation, his toes and his heels can move around a little bit. He's got some going on in his knee, a lot going on in his hips. He's got sort of an ab crunch, if you don't mind the back being broken up a little bit. His arms can move all the way around, forward and back, in and out, everything in between. He's got double joints in his elbows. This hand, of course, has some articulation, and this one over here can rotate. And then in his neck, he actually has a ball joint and a pivot, so he's very expressive, at least above the waist. Here he is commanding Devastator once again, and while this is terribly inaccurate, I actually like this scale a lot. It turns Devastator into less of a lumbering behemoth and more of a really big dog. Just a loyal attack beast. And I find that dynamic between him and Megatron really interesting. As you can see, he towers over Bumblebee, which makes him look pretty impressive.
And finally, here he is opposing Optimus. I think they look great together, and Megatron ends up being just a little bit taller than Prime, which is exactly how I like it. So, until next time, this has been Rollout, signing off.